Hello and welcome to a unique and powerful presentation. Together, we're going to discover the 6 hidden forces that actually control every decision we make in life, and therefore control the quality of our lives. It's kind of like having a secret steering wheel in our brain with 6 little drivers fighting for control over which direction we go. So can't you see the value in us understanding these 6 drivers? So I want you to know, before we get started, that you're in the right place if you have taken the Hidden Forces quiz and you want to know more. And for those of you who maybe haven't taken the quiz yet, don't worry. If you're wondering, wait, what quiz? We'll let you know how to access that later. But for right now, I want you to know that you are in the right place if you feel like you are meant for more, if you feel like you have a little bit more, you have more life to give, you have more life to live, but you're just not sure how to access that part of you, you're in the right place. So if we haven't yet met, my name is Jenny Townsend, and I'm honored to be interviewing this life transformation expert, Chandra Lynn, tonight. So Chandra, I'll tell you a little bit about her before I bring her on. She is a Tony Robbins certified coach and an entrepreneur. And as you'll learn shortly, she has transformation literally running through her blood. So she's helped people of all ages and creeds discover the hidden force that's been holding them back, so they're able to step into that life that they want, their best life. And the stories that she'll share with you really are astonishing. So, are you ready for this? Let's go ahead and get started. And I can't wait to introduce you to Chandra Lynn. Welcome, Chandra.
Hi, Jenny, and hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be here.
Awesome. So tell us, what are you most excited about actually tonight?
I think I'm most excited about the fact that what I'm going to share is going to be something that people can put immediately into their lives so they can see positive benefits, like as in today.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, then let's go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. So Jenny and I have had a history of working on a lot of different programs together. And when we talked about what we wanted to deliver next, I really had to give some thought into the most powerful, impactful thing we could deliver. And it came to me pretty quickly that the thing that I have found being the most transformational has related to these hidden forces. So I decided that I was going to share this with you because it's not only the most transformational, but it's the foundation to my signature Root to Rise program.
Incredible, incredible. And so something that I love about your story, Chandra, is that transformation, like I said, is literally in your blood. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your grandparents, which is where, that whole story came from?
Absolutely. So first, my overarching mission that really came from my grandparents is to help people love life, mainly because it's not always easy to love life, but it's so necessary. Out of a 1 to 10 scale, I strive to live an 8, 9, 10 life. And all of the programs that I put together so far have been to help other people do the same. Now, here's a picture of my grandparents and also the sign from their office. They were both psych professionals and 2 really of the most important mentors in my life. In fact, here's another picture of my grandma Edie, and she had a suicide and crisis intervention hotline coming into her home office, which now I'm proud to say that I own and have been continuing on with her legacy.
That's incredible. The transformation, life transformation still happens in that physical space. That's so powerful. Now, as much as, all of the great that your grandparents, especially your grandma, have imparted into you, you also noticed that you inherited some of those struggles that they faced as well, correct?
Yeah, I grew up admiring my grandparents for how much they helped me. And, so I was very focused on what they did in their jobs and kind of for a living. But I realized that I also inherited their gifts of empathy and their dedication to helping people with life skills because of this. But as a young person, I struggled with my own ways of coping. And as a result of that, I think it was really the reason I started focusing on personal growth and development at a really young age. It was to manage depression.
Wow. And then once you got into your career, you've actually described it as having 2 phases. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what the first phase of your career was?
Absolutely. So the first phase really was, working in the corporate world and then creating my own marketing agency. And Glow Marketing is the name of my agency, which I still operate today. I've been really fortunate to be able to work with a lot of, well, really the biggest brands in the world, from Apple Computer and Mercedes to celebrities like Tyra Banks and musicians like Black Eyed Peas, Nine Inch Nails, Peter Gabriel, Sting, and a number of others. So I'm super proud of what I've done with my career. I think that the key here is just that it was a safer route for me at a younger age to get involved in marketing than it was for me to get involved in psychology, primarily because of, just some of my own issues with depression and stuff. I just really didn't have the life skills yet to bring that into both my personal and professional life. So at a young age, I focused on building those life skills personally, but professionally, I went the road of marketing, which allowed me to be really creative and use some of those relationship-oriented, empathic abilities to be good at what I did for a living.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so now, since you've shared with me that you feel like you're moving into your second career, would you mind telling us a little bit about that before we go right into the training?
Yeah, I mean, as you get to know me, you know that I have, you know, a course actually, but a strong belief that we need to connect to our authenticity. And when I went through that process of connecting to what was truly authentic and meaningful to me, I realized that it had everything to do with this philosophy of loving life and learning how to and helping other people do it as well. And so I launched Glow Living, and now I'm living my legacy. It started as an online community, and as much as I love the community, I also wanted to really have one-on-one contact with people. So I developed a training program called Root to Rise, which has an online platform, but also as you see in these pictures, I've been able to do them as live workshops and get in front of people and really see the direct impact from myself. So I understood what was working and what wasn't. And then most recently, I've launched a membership program. This is a group coaching program called Glow Circles. And the reason I did it was because as feedback from the seminars, people were saying, well, I left so empowered and, was able to make some pretty significant changes right off the bat. But I want ongoing connection with you and the other people I was involved with. So they were asking for an ongoing type of program. So I'm excited to have Glow Circles be that for them.
Incredible. So as we go through and talk about this framework that you've developed to find these hidden forces that contribute to the quality of our life, why should we care? Why should we care about knowing this?
I think that the main thing is that we're going to uncover some things that, lead right into that, which is, these 6 hidden forces influence the decisions that contribute to the quality of your life. So when you understand what these decisions are, these forces are, you can make decisions that can affect your life really quickly. I mean, immediately, in fact. And also that you can learn how to consciously choose what's best for attaining a balanced life. I think that it's really important to do that in order to gain more control over your life and be able to get in your own driver's seat. And to me, that also means, coming from that authentic place and also being rooted into the things that ground you enough to be able to rise up to your fullest potential.
Incredible. I love it. I love it. And as a gift for people who are going to be joining us for the entire call, for those who stay till the end, you have an incredible gift for them, don't you?
Yeah, I think that the main thing is to, have something to reflect back on after we do the training to remind yourself of all that we're going to discuss. So I have a download link for a PDF that contains the next slides that you're going to see that we're going to use to uncover these hidden forces.
Beautiful. What a thoughtful gift. Okay, so let's really get into this. We've named that there are 6 hidden forces that control our decisions and therefore control our lives. Would you mind going into what those actually are?
Yeah, so the punchline really is that hidden forces equal our 6 human needs. So some of you may have become aware of human needs from different places, like, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or even Tony Robbins has an adaptation of Maslow's needs that he teaches as well. And that's where I originally learned them from. Now, I then adapted further on the human needs and have been able to also show an effective way of applying them to the different areas of your life. So the thing about the human needs is that well, first of all, everyone from everywhere has them. We have all the same needs. However, we focus on different ones based on, our own personal circumstances. So we are driven to serve these needs in some way. We pretty much have to. And so we have choices, though, about whether we serve them in healthy ways and unhealthy ways. And we do this through our decision making. So as we're serving our needs, we're, making a significant impact to the quality of our life without necessarily being conscious of it. So what I'm going to do today is go over all of the needs with you so that you can have a consciousness about what is actually driving the decisions you make. And as a result of that, we'll be able to make immediate change in your life for the positive.
Beautiful. All right. Yeah. So what are the actual 6 human needs?
So here they are. Most of my teachings are built from the ground up. So that's where the root to rise metaphor comes in. And so I'll start at the bottom with security, then variety, self, intimacy, growth, and transcendence. Those are the 6. And we're going to go through each one of those.
Very nice.
What you'll start to realize, and what we do in the Root to Rise program, is we have a way of applying our needs to the different areas of our life. I call that the life root system. So you'll see that you can evaluate them based on, well, really just how they've impacted the different areas of your life based on your decisions. And so that would include your health, your family, your romantic partnership, your career, and your friend group.
That's powerful. That's powerful. So, I mean, in theory, it makes sense that if we understand, all right, so these are the 5 roots that help stabilize our lives, and then we'll see how they interplay with the needs. I mean, this feels like a really powerful framework in theory. So do you have any actual real life stories that you can share about clients that you've worked with that have experienced incredible transformation?
Oh, yes. I have a lot of them. And actually, I came prepared with a story about Trey. Now, Trey, this is actually a picture of the real Trey, and he agreed to let me tell you a little bit about his story. He came to my Root to Rise seminar. This is a picture of him at the event, and he did it on his 55th birthday. And he thought it was the best gift that he could give to himself, to take stock, being that it was a milestone year. And another reason he came in is because about a year and a half prior to the seminar, he had tragically lost his wife to a very rare form of cancer. Now, he had done a lot of therapy, he had done a lot of other modalities, and he thought, well, now it's time for me to get unstuck from anything holding me back and start to visualize my future. And he decided that this particular class would be right for him. So in doing his evaluation, which I can just briefly show you an example of one of the worksheets that he filled out that helped him put his how he was meeting his needs in his relationship route, which was the one that he calls severed, how he was plotting that out, how he's serving his needs. He used that system, and he realized through that a lot of his needs were being ignored, and that he'd realized it was negatively impacting his other roots. So not just the romantic root, but pretty much all of his roots were out of balance. Mm-hmm. And he was really just keeping the lights on, sleepwalking through his job, feeling uninspired. And also he's a drummer in a really popular band, and he was just feeling creatively numb. Mm-hmm. So immediately after the Root to Rise workshop, he decided that he was going to put some some of the tangible, really tactical things that we came up with for him into play. And he actually, his quote here is that he recognized that a pattern had emerged, and the pattern was that he was not feeding the other roots that were really there to support him, while his relationship root was what he called severed. And so immediately after that, he decided to feed his friend root and opened up to spending some time with friends. And one of those friends happened to be one of the singers in his band. And within a couple weeks of the workshop, he sent me some fireworks emojis and said that the friendship had heated up into a full-blown romance.
Wow.
And yeah, and now they're in a relationship. She has kids and he has kids, and they've managed to make everything all work out to move forward in life together. So that has positively impacted his life, alongside just getting his mojo back at work and with the band. And he's getting so many gigs that he's having to turn some of them down just in order to keep his other roots in balance. So that's
Right.
Trey's story.
Wow, what an incredible story. What an incredible story. And I love that you shared with us just a peek into the framework that he used to have those aha moments. So
Yeah.
as we dig deeper into training, would you walk us through these 6 hidden forces?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, we start at the bottom, and the first need, is security. Now, every individual needs some sense of security, certainty in life. So, a place to live, food, and healthcare, things like that. And so as you can relate to this, you'll see certain code words on this slide that will give you ways of detecting whether, when you're either hearing yourself talk or talking to other people, you can decode what you're saying and which need you're really talking about. And that can help you create that consciousness that I was talking about earlier, to give you insight into what needs you're serving while you're making your decisions. Now, before I move on, I want to say that each of these needs has a positive and negative aspect to them, and kind of like a yin yang. And so the positive aspect here is that those that have a high need for security will also be able to make long and serious commitments. So that might show up in their relationships. It might show up in their job commitments. They could be in a job for a really long time. They do prefer safe activities, and are also seen as the person that's stable and can be relied on, can be maybe a source of advice or wisdom, a sounding board. And in terms of their living conditions, they prefer, comfortable environment and routine. Now, the negative aspects of that are that they may prefer control, and they like to be able to make decisions only because it increases their need for certainty, not because they're control freaks, but because they want to be able to maybe, feel a little bit more in control of their life and their surroundings. They may also feel a bit guarded, and need to have a high sense of trust with people before they can be vulnerable. And they do have a need to stay safe, so that can block some growth, and it can also have them feeling a little risk adverse. So as long as people are aware of the negative aspects, then they can work with that and use the positive ones to bring out the healthy ways of feeding these needs.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah. And then conversely, there's another need that has a great relationship with security, and that's variety. And the reason why variety has a relationship to security is because it also means that it can lead to things that are uncertain. So we do actually have a need for uncertainty. We have a need for bringing about things that are different, that involve change, that are new, that may give us more of a spice of life. And so the good parts about that are that for the people that have a high need for variety, they seek and bring excitement not, they seek it for themselves, but they also bring it to others. So it can be really fun to be around people that have a high need for variety. They often have a lot of different ideas. They crave adventure. They have different ideas around things to do for fun, like entertainment and so forth. But conversely, they can struggle with focus. Sticking to just one thing because they want to try other things. They may be challenged with commitment because they like the variety, and that might show up in different ways. Like, for example, with they may make good freelancers where they have lots of different jobs instead of one job, or they may like to date instead of being in a committed relationship. They are very keen to take risks and seek thrills, and sometimes that can have a negative outcome, but hopefully they can use that for the positive as well, and they can get bored easy. So those are just some attributes, the pros and cons of having a high need for variety.
Interesting. And before you go on to the next one, I feel like I'm starting to see a pattern emerge between where I feel like security, its opposite is variety. Are these needs going to be paired up like this as we go through?
There's definitely a connection between all of them, and they do play off of each other. But this one is one of the ones that's really pronounced. I once coached a man who was actually in an affair, and when we did the needs evaluation on the needs that were getting met in his committed relationship, his marriage, and the needs that were getting met in his affair, we realized that the marriage offered a very high level of certainty and security, where the affair offered a very high level of variety. And you could see easily that by having both people in his life, he was getting both of those needs met at really high levels, and without one of the other one, he was suffering in some way. And so although that's not the best dynamic, and there's healthier ways maybe of going about getting both of those needs met, it did bring some awareness to him about why he found himself in that with those current life conditions.
Makes sense. All right, thanks for that.
It's great to be able to learn about how they work with each other, and we'll be uncovering more and more of those, and people can do that for their own lives as well.
Powerful.
The third one is self. And having a positive, healthy sense of self is necessary to loving life. It starts with loving ourselves first and then grows into loving others. And so every person has a need to feel important, special, validated, unique. And there's lots of ways that this shows up. Positively, it may show up with, these people demonstrating leadership. They may, find that they trust themselves to make decision and take calculated risks. So they, are used to showing up authentically and living out their truth and letting people align to what's unique and true about them. And you're probably seeing with those people that they prioritize self-care. Now, negatively, they can have destructive self-talk. So if you don't have a high sense of self-worth or you're struggling with a low self-esteem, there may be a voice going on in your head about you not being good enough or worthy. And so that self-talk can be fairly destructive. And that is under the need for self to in order to be our best self. Sometimes we can be critical. Now, it may also show up in our need to control or dominate others. So one of the fastest ways to feel significant is to, say, for example, express violence. Because if for example, if you're with somebody who's being violent towards you, they're the most significant person to you at that moment. And so that is obviously a very negative and extreme example of how the need for self can happen, but it can also help you understand why there is violence in the world. People get a lot of significance and self esteem in a way, even if it's negative, out of doing that.
Wow.
So yeah, also some of us may have had experiences with people, especially in the work environment or in a friend group, where they always want to posture themselves or, be better than others. They're kind of the one-uppers. They're the ones that, you have to have the spotlight, or, get seen as being responsible for things that are happening, that are good, that are happening. But they also might be the person that comes into the group and has the biggest problem in the room, because that's a way to get the focus put on them, that their problems are important. And so, if you know someone that leads with, always having a really significant problem, it may be their way of getting attention for this need, to serve this need.
Interesting.
Yeah. And lastly, they do tend to compare themselves to others a lot. And also they may experience some suicidal thoughts as a result of that negative self-talk. They may believe that others are better off without them.
Wow.
Yeah. So on to better things. Intimacy is really, it's something we all need, because what it represents is our connection with other human beings. We have a need to belong, and it's natural to have dependencies. Now, as we'll see from the positive and negative aspects, sometimes dependencies can be healthy, and sometimes they can be, we call them codependencies and things like that can err on the negative side. And so positively, people with a high need for intimacy really care about connecting deeply with others. They're there for them. They bring people together. Their friends may see them as trusted advisors. The people can be vulnerable with them because they're usually able to express their own degrees of vulnerability. And they're just the people that just really value love. I have friends that have love tattoos and even tattooed on their wrists and things like that. And that gives me a pretty good idea that they value intimacy as one of their highest driving needs.
Right.
Yeah. And then conversely, the negative aspects is that, they can get down on them, on others who gate intimacy with them. So they might always be trying to connect and get frustrated when other people aren't letting them in. And in that situation, it's always great to, invite the intimacy and not use it as an expectation. And they may also act in ways that are considered codependent. Now, just as a little fun thing, one of my coaches, Iris and Ruby, had broken this word down in two ways. One is into me, I see, which is being intimate with and vulnerable with yourself, that you can look into yourself. And the other is into me, you see. And that is allowing others to be vulnerable and intimate with you.
Wow. What a powerful way to look at that word.
Yeah. So moving along, because of our time constraints, I want to take us to our fifth need, and that's growth. Now, everyone has a need to grow, and Tony Robbins will often say, if you're not growing, you're dying inside. And what we're really talking about is our need to develop ourselves emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, anything that will expand us. And the world is always expanding. Everything's always growing. And so when you get in that rhythm of growth, you have a lot of benefits. So that's why it's one of the driving needs. Jenny, I think when you took the quiz, was this your need?
Yes, this was the one that rose to the top. And since then, I've been able to see it in myself, for better or for worse. It's something that I've been paying attention to. And it's so insightful just knowing this one thing about a big part of who I am.
That's great. So, because positively, it can make people who have a high need for growth very interesting. They're interesting to others because they have so many things to share, new things all the time. And they're often seen as leaders on the subjects they've studied. So usually if they've studied something, they've grown to a certain point with it before moving on, which could make them even seem like experts. And that's a really positive attribute of growth. Now, negatively, we can lack time to achieve other things because the people who have a high need for growth can also throw themselves into lots of learning environments like and achievements like I need to get a coaching certificate, for example, in order to start coaching. I can't have the achievement of coaching and transforming people's lives until I have this certificate. So there's always a lot of time invested in that growth. So that's one of it's great. It's just that, if we're achievement oriented, we have to be mindful of the amount of time that we spend on growth and not on actually implementing our goals.
That's so good. That's so good. And it's so funny. Something that you mentioned on the positive side made me think about, I've been teased a few times by saying that, or because I will start a shocking number of sentences by saying, so I was listening to a podcast the other day, like kind of like intake, 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 intake. And I found that there are some points in which I just need to stop the intake and like actually be with myself and not always be in this like growth learning mode. But then also what's interesting is I've seen that sometimes I'll get annoyed if I feel like we're having to cover the same ground over and over again, like we should be moving forward. So I don't think I would have ever thought that those two things might be related to one part of my personality before engaging with this system. So I just want to say thank you. It's been so insightful for me.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that these kind of insights are what makes this program impactful, because we can start to be aware and, like I said earlier, have that consciousness as we go through life and observing ourselves. Right. So lastly, I'm not sure if you have this, but sometimes people can feel dissatisfied because, they don't feel like they ever know quite enough. And if that can hold people back from actually engaging in their goals, like I mentioned earlier, if you never feel like it's enough. And there's always another book to read, another podcast to listen to. Yeah. And it impacts it can impact your time, but it can also impact your feeling of worthiness as well.
Sure.
And because of that, people with this high need can also not give themselves enough credit for what they actually do know.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful.
So lastly, it brings us to our sixth and final need, transcendence. Now, transcendence is about moving beyond the needs of the self and looking at serving the needs of others. So contributing beyond yourself, giving, being in service. These are all words that people use when they're describing their need to transcend. They are looking for ways to make a difference. Now, you can see how making a difference might serve the other need of significance and their needs for their self and their self-esteem and everything. So there is an interplay between transcending and also feeling that self need of significance. And I think that when you're in true transcendence mode, you may find that it's really not about you at all, that it's about just the mark that you can make on the world, the difference that you can make, and wanting to make this life count and be able to make a difference, regardless of whether you get credit for it or not. So in a positive aspect to this, it means that these people care deeply for contributing beyond themselves. They tend to be level-headed and have a clear vision for what they want, and they want to share with others something they feel passion for. So right now, when I last took the quiz, my driving need was transcendence, but it wasn't always transcendence. I had other needs that were I would say, powering all my decisions before, in some in healthy, some in unhealthy ways. But when I moved into transcendence, one thing I can tell you that has been so amazing is that it seems to be serving all of the other needs at really high levels. Because when I am giving beyond myself and I'm doing the work that I'm doing now, I feel that sense of self. I feel certain and secure that I can, in what I'm offering. There's so much variety in how I'm doing it and what I can learn. So there's growth, there's intimacy with others, because I'm connecting to people. I mean, this is what this work is about, is affecting people's lives in a real and dramatic way. So as you can see, when your focus moves from something like, how do I feel important in my work, for example, and into how can I help and how can I be of best service, that all of the other needs, start to get met at pretty much the highest possible levels.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a bit of the secret sauce that I wanted to share with people when they're looking at trying to lead that 8, 9, 10 life that I was describing earlier.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful.
And so, but negatively, just since every aspect has that, and I'll speak for myself, I sometimes will be so eager to try to help that I don't always take the time to make sure it's invited.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned some tools for doing that, often asking first if people are open to it, if they would like to receive feedback, or if they just want me to listen. I've had to learn to be a better listener as a result of it. And then also that people with a high need for transcendence might find that they have to consciously practice more self-care, because giving a lot can drain you and make you feel depleted, and you have to make sure that you fill up your own cup and keep it full in order to help others, because there's really no end to how much you can do for others and help and give. So you have to make sure you're coming from a place of feeling full inside yourself, to have that energy to be able to prevent yourself from getting depleted. And lastly, high transcendence need people can get disappointed when others aren't giving as much. Now, when you can move into a place of not having any expectations around your giving, it's a beautiful thing. But it is true that sometimes things can feel out of balance in some relationships and in some circumstances. So just to be mindful of what are your expectations, for what other people would give back, that can help a lot.
Nice. That's so smart. Okay. So then to recap, it is security, variety, self, and intimacy. There's the other one. And then growth and transcendence.
Right.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Very good. So let's say our viewers really embrace this framework of looking at their needs and how they relate to their decisions. What are some other examples of what is possible? I know you shared about Trey, but do you have any other examples you can share with the audience?
Yeah, so what I'm showing on screen now is just some photos from my workshop, and I came up with a few case studies from this that I'd like to share as briefly as possible. And the first one is related to this couple, Susan and John. They came to the Root to Rise seminar together, and they realized that in doing these kind of activities together, they were doing a great job prioritizing their relationship highly. And what they found out, though, is consequently they had been not serving their other roots quite as much. And so they realized they hadn't been spending enough time with their friends, and for example. So together they came up with a tactic that if they could make room, some room to do alone time things with friends, would be great, but also to serve two needs at once by going on double dates. And that was a really great tactic to double up on the needs that they're serving and the roots that were being served as well.
That's a really smart idea.
Yeah. And then there's Colleen. Now, Colleen was feeling really stuck when she came. She was, what she called living small. I mean, she really knew she was. She didn't have a job at that time. She had some part-time stuff, but she wasn't passionate about. She had not been in a relationship for a while, and she was living at home and as an adult, and she just felt like she kept putting off these accomplishments that she had as goals for herself, because she would have all these things that she had to do. She'd put it her way first. So she was thinking that she had to improve one thing or another before she could get to the big thing. And when she realized that all of the things she had expected herself to do before going for her major goals, they were keeping her from ever achieving them. So what's exciting is that when she left the seminar, she was like, I have to get past some of the limiting fears and some of the blocks that were keeping those roots and those needs from being served. And we came up with some really great tactics. And all I can tell you at this point is that she told me that she got a job at this really hot winery pouring because she has a serious passion for wine. But the other reason she did it is because it's a very lively spot where she's able to meet people. And as a result, she's already been going out on several dates.
That's
so she's
amazing.
super hopeful, yeah, about finding a new relationship.
Amazing. I love it. Great story.
Thanks. And then lastly, there's Erica. Now, Erica allowed me to show the real Erica. So this is Erica with her daughter. And she actually called me and gave me this quote. So it says, Root to Rise helped me improve my connectedness with my friends, find a calm peace in my romantic relationship, and improve her confidence in parenting and gain clarity on how to maximize her career impact.
Wow.
So Erica is literally one of the busiest people that I know. And I think that she was just having trouble balancing it all. Mm-hmm. And so when she focused in on the needs and how they're impacting her root system, she has told me that she's feeling so much more alignment in just balancing such a busy lifestyle.
So good. So good. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So if we could just really quickly recap, because you covered a lot of ground here, what were today's discoveries?
So the discoveries are about the hidden forces we had alluded to in the beginning are our human needs. And that it's important to balance our needs with our life root system in order to feel grounded, to feel like we're in control, that we're in the driver's seat of our life, and that we're able to move towards needs like transcendence, growth and transcendence, to be able to, positively impact all of the needs that we need to serve in positive ways.
Love it. Love it. And then there was one other one. Was that correct?
Well, actually, what I wanted to share was that if at this point in the talk, if people haven't taken the quiz, that they're free to do so by going to glowliving.com/needs quiz.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that URL will show up on the screen in just a second.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that I had it as need quiz and it's actually needs quiz. So sorry about that.
No worries. All right, wonderful. Well then, let's talk about this framework that you've developed that brings in to like a powerful system of these 6 drivers that influence all of our decision, as well as combining with the roots that keep us grounded and being able to stand tall. Root to Rise. Yeah. And I love that name. It just sounds, I feel like I understand it, but then I'm also curious. So where did you come up with this name?
Actually, I came up with it in a yoga class taught by Kristen Desange, and she and I are actually partnering on some new programs. But when I was in her class, it was really the first time I was introduced to it. And this is an example of a pose that really requires you in a physical way to root down in order to rise up. And so you can see that there's muscular energy that is necessary in your legs and in your feet to root down in order to have the organic extension that's necessary to rise up. And she always taught me that our yoga mat is a microcosm for life. So how I am with myself on my mat is a good indication of how I am with myself in life, meaning my self-talk and when I get frustrated, when I don't, all those kind of things. And I started thinking about, well, Root to Rise has this physical practical application, but all of yoga has a deeper philosophy. And when I was examining it with her, I realized that, it has to do with rooting down into your core life value system and balancing them, so those roots, in order to be able to even expect yourself to rise, to connect to something bigger, to have achievements, to feel like you have a higher purpose. And I think that the key here is that when we have all these expectations of ourselves, these goals and everything, and we feel like we should have this higher purpose in mind, and we're frustrated when we don't. It has to do with the fact that we may not have even created a solid and stable enough foundation to rise from to achieve those things. So we might have some minor achievements, but we're thinking, wow, I know I'm capable of so much more, or why haven't I found my higher purpose yet? And I decided that, for me, it was about going back into my roots and looking at where I was really stuck, and things that I needed to balance in order to be able to even expect myself to rise from there. So that's how the Root to Rise name came about. It was really a yoga philosophy.
That's amazing.
Framework.
That's incredible. And I believe you have an infographic, right? So
Yeah.
like actually showing the roots and then the ability to rise and have those beautiful branches and fruit and all that.
Yeah, I mean, without going through the whole infographic, this is what I'll share with you. It's built from bottom up, so from rooting down to rising up. And the goal is progressing towards your own goals with a higher purpose in mind. And you'll learn in the course that I don't feel like a higher purpose is necessarily just bestowed on you from some higher force or power. It's something that we decide to embody and take on. Mm-hmm. And so there's some things that we can do to open ourselves and to prepare for that, which is more part of the Rise portion of the course. We've been talking a lot about the roots portion of the course, and I've broken the course up into 2 parts in order to be able to address those things. And also, the whole framework is elemental. It's based on nature. So I integrated different philosophies, universal truths, and organic elements in hopes that it's safe and approachable for everyone.
I love it. That's so powerful. And you've come up with an equation because you said that this is a system. Root to Rise is a system for loving life, right?
Yes.
I love that phrase. And you said that you've come up with a formula for loving life. Would you share that with us?
Absolutely. Well, what's not shown on this slide is the rooting and the balancing. So it starts there. But then when you're on your rise, and the benefits of rising is that you rise and start to feel progress towards your goals and towards your accomplishments, and that brings joy. And when you start to feel that joy, that's ultimately what helps you love life.
I love that. That's amazing. That's incredible. And okay, so the amazing success stories you have with this program aren't limited to your clients, right? You actually built this for yourself. Would you mind sharing a couple of your authentic outcomes from going through this process?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I originally got my coaching certificate and started to work in this area for my own personal growth. I hadn't really thought that it was going to end up being something that I was going to roll out to other people. But when I started to feel the real transformation inside of myself, that transcendence need kicked in. I'm like, I just cannot keep it to myself anymore. Mm-hmm. I need to share it. And so although I was focused on glow marketing at the time, I'm like, I need to build a business around this because it's where I want to put my focus, especially as I get older and really want to, live in this world of personal growth and transformation. So the first thing is that I created the system to balance the needs of my own root system. And then I needed to develop a language that around these needs so that my partner and my friends and my colleagues could understand me, and I could be more direct about what I was looking for and needed in my life. And, that I think that's drastically improved my relationships, and also given them language around it, even to the point where we can analyze movies together and talking about what, the protagonist needs are and everything like that. And it's really fun, and it's been super helpful. And then, when I start to feel stressed or blue, it helps me recover much more quickly from that downward spiral. I used to allow the spiral to happen until, it was just like, it was mush. And now I stop it in its tracks before it gets, really gets me down. And although I still have stress, I handle it so much more gracefully. I'm more balanced and rising faster towards fulfilling my higher purpose than ever.
Incredible. That's so good. That is so good. So today's training was a powerful one. You know, you packed a lot of real gold, real gems into our training. And so you discussed earlier who this was created for, this training was created for, but would you mind speaking to who this course is created for?
Absolutely. I mean, as a marketer, I've been trained to have niche markets and to focus on certain demographics. And I have thrown all that out the window for this because it's really for anyone who wants to live that 8, 9, 10 life. And it's also for people in particular that have a hard time saying no and upholding boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
or are, wanting to overcome the overwhelm, and also have competing priorities and need to know what to focus on. And it's for people seeking more balance in their root system, and also that they are ready and want transformation in their life. They want to improve their mood and what I call putting your crown on. So this means that you're ready to put yourself first, find your sovereignty and rise to your fullest potential.
That's so good. And as we were talking about the importance of putting on your crown, balancing, and like having the boundaries and living the 8, 9, 10 life, you shared with me, you're like, oh my gosh, I saw this photo online the other day, and I was like, oh, we have to include this. But would you mind speaking a little bit to why we both felt like this was so important to include today?
Absolutely. This is the picture, and I think it speaks 1,000 words. But I'd like to invite everybody watching to think about the impact that their life decisions have, and if we don't put dedicated time and energy into breaking patterns, getting unstuck, clearing obstacles, all these things I've been talking about, then what would your life look like if everything stayed the same as it is today next year? What would it look like 3 years from now? What would it look like 5 years from now if everything stayed the same, for the most part the same? We just don't have the time to stay stuck. It's so important to break through that stuff so that the larger percentage of our life is at an 8, 9, 10 level.
Mm-hmm.
That's my philosophy, and that's why I'm inviting everybody to this program.